Welcome to Hope is Here. As a lot of you know, my favorite sport is basketball. And for basketball fanatics like me, there's no better time of year than March Madness, baby. Over the next couple of programs, we'll be talking with Bill Rieser about his book, Vertical Leap. Bill was a guy that had some game and talked a little trash both on and off the court. Bill was a high school phenomenon. He had a thunder slam dunk in an intimidating game that humiliated opponents and left college coaches salivating. His sky-high leaps were so miraculous that the other street players nicknamed the Italian boy from East Harlem White Jesus. Yet Bill's life was anything but a slam dunk. He'd been abused and neglected as a child, and he was angry at everyone and everything because of it. If that weren't enough, a promising college career and stardom in the NBA was derailed by injury and a self-destructive pattern of excess. But just when it seemed his would be another tale of a talented life going down in flames, he encountered the real Jesus and discovered he's the true miracle worker who changes lives. In Bill's book, Vertical Leap, it's a very honest, compelling account. Bill takes you from the streets of New York City to the throne of God so we can discover, as Bill did, that every person who takes Jesus at his word will become a satisfied customer. Bill is a lifelong suffering New York Knicks fan. I love the story that Mike Bro shared in your forward of your book, Vertical Leap, about his favorite basketball player growing up that connects the nickname that you had in high school, White Jesus. Can you share that with us?
Well, I'm so grateful to be on the show, and I love playing basketball, especially in New York City, and God really gave me a gift. I had a 44-inch vertical leap, and I could jump out of the gym. And, you know, they always give you that AKA in New York City, also known as that nickname. And while the name White Jesus had nothing to do with God, I thought I was God, but I was never really humble enough to ever let him lead my life. Earl the Pearl Monroe was appropriately called Black Jesus because, as they said, he could do miracles with a basketball. And I had the honor of playing with some of the greatest players to ever play the game of basketball. Guys like Nate Tiny Archibald, Pee Wee Kirkland, Joe Hammond, Pookie Wilson. Some of these guys, most people never heard of, but they were street ball legends. They were some of the greatest players to ever play the game of basketball. Guys like Joe Hammond dropped 50 points on Julius Erving in jeans at Rucker Park one day. Wow. Pee Wee Kirkland actually scored 133 points in a basketball game, surpassed Wilt by 33. And
that was without the three-pointer.
Yeah, it's without the three-pointer. And so I didn't think there was a lot of passing going on that game, but
yeah, you think?
No.
All right. Well, we're going to get more into your basketball career here in a couple minutes, but share a little bit, what your childhood was like in New York City. It was definitely not your normal childhood, especially for those of us that have been sheltered in central Kentucky.
Well, basically, New York City, the streets of New York City raised me. I grew up in Spanish and Black Harlem. My dad left when I was 6 months old, never got to see my dad. And my mom raised me and my two sisters by herself. And she did a great job, but no mom could do what a dad can do. I never had the protection, the love, the affirmation of a physical father. And I went through a series of events when I was 12 years old that shaped who I was going to be for most of my life until I accepted Christ. I mean, it really wrecked my life. My root issues were abandonment issues from my dad leaving, an absent father wound, and I developed a lot of insecurities and fears. When I was 12 years old, I was sexually assaulted by a made hit guy from the mafia, threatened to kill me and my family if I told anyone. And I got to tell you, just the shame, the guilt, the pain of what I had to deal with, as well as it robbing my identity. I had no idea who I was. I was forced to do drug deals. There was a guy that killed probably more than 100 people before he died, and you just didn't tell this guy no. He had me taken. He gave me a $100 bill and told me to go into this building. A couple of guys gave me a package and some change, so I'm doing drug deals. I get the job done. He tells me to do it again. Those drug dealers realized I just gave them a counterfeit $100 bill. I'm in a busted drug deal. I got two guns on my head, one in my head, actually one in my heart, and for some reason I can still see the fingers on both triggers. Both guns wouldn't go off. And now I know that God was in that hallway protecting me. I just didn't know it back then.
Right. And how old were you, Bill, when this
I was 12 years old.
12 years old.
This all happened when I was 12. The sexual assault, the fighting for my life, the busted drug deals, just all happened when I was 12 years old, and I got out of there. It's a miracle that I got out of there. I told those guys, listen, this wasn't my idea. I told them who sent me in there, and this guy was so feared. I said, if I don't come out of here, he's going to come looking for me. If you guys like living, you better not do anything to me because he'll come looking for you. And not only did I walk out of there with with my life, but I also walked out of there with the package and the change.
Wow.
I knew I was probably going to be in sales that day.
Yeah, you definitely sold. Yeah, you
God had given me
life.
good negotiating skills. But I made a decision not to do drugs, but as far as using drugs, drinking, having a crazy, immoral sexual lifestyle, that's what I did to numb the pain in my life. I didn't know anything else. I didn't know anything. The pain was so great in my life. The shame was so great in my life that I just needed to escape. And then on top of that, I became so angry because I just bottled up all these feelings of bitterness and anger. And to tell the guy what happened and I was out, I just remember getting so angry and telling him, I don't care if you kill me right now, but I'm never doing a drug deal for you ever again. And he just looked at me and said, okay. And I learned something that day. I learned that I can get my way by being bitter and angry. And without even realizing it, I became what was done to me. And we never say that we're going to do those things. We never say we're going to become those things. But I became what was done to me. And I was just a bitter, angry kid that was always looking to escape with any drug that I could take, anything that I can drink, and anyone who I can have sex with. I was a train wreck. And but God had given me a gift, and that was the gift to play basketball. That was my ticket.
So when did you realize that, hey, I'm a pretty good basketball player? I mean, you shared about it in the book, but share with our listening audience. When did you start to realize, hey, maybe I am a decent basketball player?
I think as early as the 6th grade, I knew that I could dominate the game. And by the time I got to the 8th grade, I was slamming balls down and dunking over guys. I mean, I'd dunk so hard on guys, my wrist would bleed oftentimes. And I was one of 4 white kids out of 2,500 black and Puerto Rican students in my high school. And I was the man. And they loved me. And but that didn't do anything except fuel my pride. So that wasn't necessarily a good thing in the long run. But for me, at the time, it was the greatest thing to happen to me because I was getting the attention. And it was interesting for me that a different culture, other than my own culture, accepted me first. Because the culture that I grew up with were full-blooded Italians. I consider myself a half-breed because my mother was full-blooded Italian, but Rieser is obviously not an Italian name. It's a German name. That's from my father's side. But I didn't grow up with anyone from my father's side. I just grew up with everyone from my mother's side. But the Italian guys in the neighborhood hated me because I was a half-breed. I wasn't a full-blooded Italian. I was easy pickings, as they say in Kentucky.
Yeah, I was going to say, did they say that in New York?
It's not a New York thing.
So if I remember correctly in the book, unfortunately, you got the basketball skills, so that gave you some cred, to use a New York term. But before that, you had to use your fist a little bit because you were a minority in that school, right?
That's right. Before people knew who I was, I had to protect myself, and I had to lay some people out left and right almost every day. And New York City is a place of survival. And you've got to lay your marker down, and if someone comes and does something to you, if you back off, you're a goner. And I didn't have a crew. I didn't have someone protecting me. It was it. I was it, and I learned to fight. I learned to take care of myself. I learned to knock out guys, and I can't tell you how many guys I've knocked down in my lifetime. And that's why I've got arthritis in my hands. I've broken all my fingers, not just from basketball, but just punching guys out. And again, it was just that anger. I was the guy you never wanted to drive up close to in the car, and I would just follow you, and just if you talk to me about Jesus, I would get mad at you. Because I wondered where God was in a place like that. Where were you when I needed you? And so not only did I hate my life and other people, but I just if you provoked me, I just hated you, and I would come at you in full force. So when I first started going to that high school, people, I got the reputation of just a crazy guy, a guy you never wanted to mess with. And then once they realized I could play basketball, then everyone just loved me. And but
that was your safe place.
That was my safe place.
Yeah,
now I'm the man. Now I'm the king. And now the crowds are coming. and you couldn't get into our games no matter where we went, whether we played in a big university, whether we played in a high school gym, whether we played at Madison Square Garden. We would pack out. People from the city would come all over the place to see our games. It was amazing.
And that I would say probably